Confidence, self-belief, it isn't just a feeling. When you truly believe in yourself, it's not something that wavers and goes up and down. So what I coach my athletes on is not confidence, but conviction.
Welcome to Sports Mom Rapport, where we support and connect with moms of athletes while sharing helpful advice from each other and some guest experts along the way. This is Tara.
And I'm Destiny. Thank you for joining us as we highlight you incredible moms. Today, we are excited to welcome Derek Ward, a mindset coach who works primarily with athletes to help them build the self-belief necessary to elevate their performance.
While Derek typically works within a Christian framework, today we're going to focus on the broader mental strategies he uses that can benefit any athlete, regardless of background or belief system.
Our goal is to provide all parents and caregivers with valuable insights into helping their athletes strengthen their mindset.
Mindset is so important to everyone, but I'm super excited to hear your take on things and how to help your athletes reach peak performance, and even more so, what we as parents can do to support our children and helping them with their mindset.
Absolutely. And I'm super excited for what you guys have going on, and hopefully bring whatever value I can that's actionable for the sports moms out there to help empower their sons, their daughters, not to just be good athletes, but just be the best of them that they can be.
Absolutely. That's why we're here. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you, Derek. We're excited to hear how your methods can resonate with athletes from all backgrounds. What are some common mental roadblocks that athletes face, and how would you help them overcome those?
The first roadblock, and it's becoming really mainstream and almost cliched now, but it's belief in themselves. A lot of athletes, I even just had a conversation with one of my athletes earlier. This young man, he's at University of Texas. And the belief in yourself is the most critical piece to performing as an athlete. But one of the misconceptions that a lot of parents, coaches, people have in confidence, building self-belief, is that it's a feeling, is that it's something that can just kind of be thought about, be read about. A lot of parents will tell me that they send social media clips to their kids. Parents will reach out to me and say, yeah, I like sending your posts to my child. And I'm like, that's all good and well, but confidence, self-belief, it isn't just a feeling. When you truly believe in yourself, it's not something that wavers and goes up and down. So what I coach my athletes on is not confidence, but conviction. The biggest misconception with belief in themselves and belief in all people and athletes specifically is that they have to be more confident, that it's got to be a feeling. When they feel good, they'll be motivated, they'll be confident. But when they don't feel good, then most kids are going to struggle with confidence. So what I tell parents is stop trying to build confidence and build conviction. Now, what's the difference? Conviction doesn't waver. Conviction is concrete. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what the external circumstances are. Conviction is this knowing that you have inside of you that I have this. I've got this. This is inside of me. I've been destined for this. This is exactly where I need to be. Even in the bad times, even in the negative circumstances, even in the failure, when someone truly has conviction, their belief in themselves doesn't waver. So they don't self-sabotage. They don't pull themselves off the beaten path. They don't quit their sport or just hop in the transfer pool. They know that this is just part of my story. So the first mental roadblock is lack of self-belief. It's doubt. But in order to build that within an athlete, student athlete, young man or young woman, is not to build confidence in themselves, but build conviction. So then how do you do that? Well, it's something that has to be trained. It's something that they have to develop over a long period of time. It's something that when they go through circumstances, they're actually building real perspective and they're building real maturity, and they're going through it as a learning experience. I own a gym, and when I talk to my kids, I'm like, okay, guys, if you want to get stronger, legs, what are you going to do? You're going to go squat. Okay, cool. You want to build a stronger upper body, you're going to go bench. Awesome. You want to get faster, go sprint a hill. But if you want to build more confidence, or what I call conviction in yourself, what do? Everyone just looks at me like, I'm not really sure. I'll read. Well, let's be honest. Most kids aren't going to read. They're not probably going to read for substance. So let's just throw that out. They're going to watch social media. They're probably not watching all the clips. And if they are, it's the first 5 seconds, as we all know. What are they doing? They have to get into the mental gym. They have to train themselves. They have to make it a practice and a habit. And that's the first roadblock. And the second roadblock, I wouldn't call it a mental roadblock. I'd call it an emotional roadblock. Another big misconception that a lot of people have is that everything is mental, and it's not. It's also emotional. And emotion comes first, then mental. So you learn this in psychology. My background's in psychology. My degree is in. Emotions come first, and then thoughts. It's not the other way around. And typically they're subconscious. So a lot of what parents will come to me for, or we'll talk about, or you'll see is he or she has struggles with anxiety, or he and she just speaks negative, or he and she is just not motivated. And I'm like, okay, well then let's go beneath the surface. What are they feeling? And why are they feeling those feelings? And it's probably not just because of the coach. It's probably not just because of their situation. It's probably something that happened when they were 4 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old. It's probably something someone said. It's probably a circumstance. Was it a divorce that happened in your family? Was it a traumatic experience? Were they verbally abused? Were they physically abused? Like, what happened? Was something a teacher said one time? Was it that they were bullied, which for me, that's part of what it was? Was it that they felt distanced and detached from their family? A lot of what athletes go through is not mental roadblocks, they're emotional roadblocks. And most young athletes, especially high performers like myself, like my older brother who's a Duke All-American, or my younger brother who's at UVA on a full scholarship, we don't have many people to talk to, nor do we want to talk to anybody because we don't want to just go to counseling or therapy. So they typically stuff it deep down and we just hit the gym. Even female athletes, they'll just hit the gym. They'll just go to the soccer field. They'll go to the lacrosse field. They'll just go shoot. So they're not mental roadblocks, they're emotional roadblocks. And a lot of those emotional roadblocks are feeling inadequate, is lack of self-worth. It's, again, anxiety. And where does that anxiety stem from? Is it perfectionism? Is it criticism? A lot of what the roadblocks they deal with are emotional. So the biggest one that I find, and majority of the athletes that I work with, is either inadequacy or perfectionism. And a lot of high performers really struggle with perfectionist nature. And again, where does that stem from? Some of the athletes that I work with, it stems from the divorce that their parents went through. And then now they feel like they have to be perfect for their family. And then that transcends into their sport. Feeling inadequate. Well, that stems from them not feeling worthy in the home sometimes. Or in the language that they speak, right? We learn about love languages. Well, kids have languages too. Criticism. You get that overly critical dad or overly critical mom or overly critical friend or coach. And then that transcends into their performance. So the second one, again, I would say is like the emotional roadblocks. Perfectionism or lack of self-worth are the big ones that I see a lot of kids struggle with.
That was such a phenomenal answer. I could tell we're going to learn so much today from you, Derek. But I have to apologize because I jumped right in and didn't even ask you to introduce yourself. So will you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and what brings you here today.
Yeah, it's probably better you did it that way because I like to just dive in. Like I'm not a small talk. I'm just, when I meet someone for the first time, they're like, so what do you do? I'm like, well, what do you need? Let's go.
Yeah.
So quick background. I'm from a small town here in Griswold, Connecticut. You know, I was one of maybe 5 black kids in my entire high school. My older brother, like I said, was an All-American runner. He's one of the best runners to come out of the Northeast region. Was all-state, all-region, national, 14th ranked in the nation, had a bunch of offers. And he was Duke University's first full scholarship for running. Runners, they don't give full scholarship runners. Cross-country runners, mind you. Track sprinters for sure. But cross-country runners, colleges, they don't give that. Duke made an exception for my brother. That's how dominant he was. But a lot of the mental and emotional roadblocks we can get into were prevalent there. And then me, I grew up playing football. I was a kid who had a lot of anger, a lot of frustration because of animosity in my home, divorce. My brother and I were kind of removed by age. Growing up through those pivotal years, he wasn't around, so I got into football and went through my high school career, you know, was bullied, was chastised, was kind of siloed from my team, and that hurt a lot, and that transcended to what I do now, and broke my ankle my senior year of high school, and that was a big kind of turning point for my life. I was recruited by Georgetown, Boston College, Bucknell, majority of the Patriot League schools, some Ivies, and second week of my senior year, I snapped my ankle, was the best shape of my life, high recruited, and so missed out on majority of my senior year. That was a huge turning point in my life as well. And then came back and my trust and, my faith ended up finishing up 2 games my senior year, lost all my recruiting, and then learned about boarding schools, prep schools here in New England, where I'm from. So learned about that whole world, ended up landing in one of those schools. Was a crazy experience. Did that for a year as a post-grad, which I can provide value on because a lot of parents ask me about that whole world. And then landed up at Amherst College. Went to Amherst College for 4 years. Got my degree in psychology. Played football 4 years. Started for a couple of years. And we won 3 championships. Had a really successful run. Broke a record for the most wins in NESCAC history. Had a great time there, but lost my identity, which we can get into deeper. Graduated. Was just an athlete. Really struggled for a while on who I was and what I wanted to do, what my purpose was. Started kind of just acting out of character. Started going into the world of corporate America. In Boston, lived there. And did that for a while and just decided like, this isn't me. This isn't what I want to do. Quit. Opened up my own gym when I was 23 against my parents' wishes. Bootstrapped it. Got a couple side jobs. And 7 years later now, here we are. And learned a lot. Trained now at this point, probably 400 athletes over the last 13 years. I started training kids when I was in high school from every background, every level, from pro to 8 years old to come from money, to kids who need help, who need to train for free, who will work for me. I've seen literally everything now, and that kind of brings us to today. And my mission now is to train kids, yes, physically, speed, strength, all that. That's easy. But train them on, again, what we're talking about, like who are you and why? Because you're not going to get the most out of a young man or young woman until you can break them free of any type of limitations that they're placing on themselves. And it's not surface level motivation. It's deeper stuff that kids feel more comfortable coming to me to talk about because I'm a meathead in the gym. I train. I walk the walk. Now, again, having my degree in psychology, my wife having her master's degree in psychology, I didn't go the clinical route, studied it. My wife didn't go the clinical route, studied it just because of stigmas and limitations that can kind of place on you. Now, there's a point that I can't talk about certain things. I got to stop and say, I can't. I'm sorry, you got to go to professional. But as a coach, there's a lot that we can do and a lot that I can program when it comes to coaching. So that's my little background and experience of anybody who decides if they want to listen to me or not.
Thank you so much for diving into all of that. It's cool to see what made you so interested in training the mindset. You mentioned you lost your identity. You mentioned that you had some bullying when you were a kid. And you touched on the boarding school, which I have heard about in New England. So many people go to these specialty lacrosse schools and whatnot. I'd like to hear more about that too.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm so glad that you touched on all these different topics and really how you have this psychology background and you're so concerned about the emotional health of people because that is their core. That is why they're doing what they're doing. And I also love how you spoke about conviction rather than just confidence. People talk about confidence all the time, yet you have to have conviction. I love that you use that word in believing in yourself, and that's not easy to do. You can't just bring out confidence in somebody. They have to believe in themselves. They have to believe that they belong there, that they are worthy of being where they are at the moment. Will you share some practical strategies and exercises that perhaps parents can use to support their athletes in trying to build this conviction in themselves?
Yeah, so what I discover with most of the athletes that I work with, they're 18, 19, 21 years old. Some kids I work with are younger. Some kids are slightly older. One thing that I've discovered is these systems that you give them, they have to be practical. They have to be simple. They need to be quick because they're probably not going to do it. It needs to be something they understand at the point in time that they need to understand it. And also, lastly, it needs to happen in the order at which they need. Because when you build a house, you build a foundation first. Everything comes from the foundation. So when you're working with your son, your daughter, whoever it is, your team, everyone's going to be different. They're going to have to start in a different spot. So it has to be dynamic, but it also needs to happen in order of sequence. If not, then you might end up trying to build the roof before you build the foundation, and that doesn't make sense. So what I discovered working with a lot of the kids that I work with, there's typically 5 struggles that they deal with, and each one of those struggles comes with a certain order, a certain system at which they need to help fix some of their issues and give them mental strength. The big 5 off the top of my head are perfectionism, inadequacy, self-criticism, motivation, and purpose. And a lot of what stems from lack of conviction is coming from those 5 struggles. And based on those 5 struggles, and there's more, but those main themes is an order at which they need to work on. Because someone who's struggling with motivation and someone who's struggling with purpose or maybe even perfectionism, they might not be having the same issues right now. Typically, if someone's like struggling with motivation, one of the first things that we're going to start to instill in them is just small, consistent daily habits. Simple as that. So I'm struggling with motivation. What's your daily routine look like? I wake up too late. My nutrition's out of whack. I'm deficient on my protein, which 95% of student athletes are deficient on the protein intake. I'm on social media too much. I'm hanging around the wrong people. I'm not doing the things I know I need to do. The list goes on and on and on. So with that type of person, we're just going to focus right now on what are your daily consistent habits. Relentless action every single day. And we're going to start super duper small. Super small. Well, read this book. Well, I don't know. I have a tough time reading. Read 1 page a day to start. And then that 1 will turn into 2 and then turn into 5. My son and daughter, they need to work out more. Like one parent reached out to me about their son not working out. Instead of trying to push him to go to the gym for an hour, have him do 10 push-ups and then say, all right, you're done for the day. And then he'll be like, what do you mean? You did 10. That's 10 more than you did yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. So let's just do 10 today. And then 10 will turn into 20 and then 20 will turn into 50. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then what I tell parents is whatever that you're going to encourage or empower them to do, you have to do because they're going to watch you and everything that you do. and the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So I can promise you just about every issue that they're having, they've learned from you. And a lot of parents, they don't like to hear that. And that's okay. I don't like hearing it either. But the minute I've seen this time and again, a parent, a mom, or dad, it doesn't matter, a guardian internalizes that and makes change immediately. Their son or daughter just immediately makes change. It's night and day difference. And then the relationships get stronger. For an issue like purpose, well, then we're not going to talk about relentless daily habits and action. That's not important right now. We're going to talk about purpose under God, or identity, or what your unique set of skills are, your unique strengths, and also your unique weaknesses, and how those weaknesses are actually going to help you more than hurt you, because you have weaknesses for a reason to empower you what not to do and what you probably should not take on. It's more of a dynamic answer, but what you have to discover is which of these 5 main themes is my son or daughter experiencing? And then out of those, where should we start? What should we focus on right now? Should it be identity? Should it be process over perfection if they're a perfectionist? Well, then the first teaching, the first theme that we're going to work on is understanding your process over perfection. Well, how do I do that? Well, let's break down all your actions and see them in a different light. Let's break down all your experiences and see them in a different perspective. Let's start to hammer how every single situation has been uniquely designed to help you. Every good, every bad, and every ugly, whether you did it or not, whether it was your own doing, your own self-sabotage. And what happens when a lot of young adults, men, women, 14, 15, up to 18 years old, when you start to speak to them in this way, in the way that they understand, like, wow, that's me right now, immediately it's like this explosion goes off in their brain, and they're like, that's it. No one's ever explained it in that way. And that is what I struggle with right now. And wow, the way that you put it, and yes, that is what I'll focus on right now. And then they'll start making their mental and emotional growth a habit, because it'll be actionable. It'll be consistent. It'll be something that they can understand. And that's the biggest, most critical thing, especially in today's day and age. We're right now among the largest mental and emotional epidemic we've ever seen in our entire life. There's a book out there called The Anxious Generation. It's one of the first books that's been out with conclusive, objective data showing the effect of social media. These generation between the 14 to 18 years old right now, maybe even a little bit younger, the mental health decline that they've experienced is catastrophic. This should be raising the alarm across the world. People are struggling, and the kids are the ones that bear the biggest load. What's going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years is there's going to be a mental kind of revolution that I like to think about, that this generation, I think, will be the first biggest change maker. Like I always say to my athletes, your pain will become your purpose. And it's unfortunate that they have to go through that, but there will be a lot of good change that I feel like that will happen. Because I've already seen it in athletes that I coached 8 years ago. And you know what a lot of them are doing? Becoming coaches, saying they want to get into the realm that I get in, say they want to go affect more change physically, mentally, and through nutrition. I have numerous athletes that I've worked with that are nutrition coach, super into fitness and writes fitness programs for other people. Another one's like, I want to go train people. That's just what I want to do. I want to start a lacrosse camp. Then I say, well, why? And they say, well, because coach, what you were able to do, it wasn't just about us being as athletes. It was us being the best us that we could be, and the culture and the environment. So the second practical thing that I would say to parents is put your son or daughter in the right environment. Maybe they already have it with a sports coach. Amazing. That's awesome. But that's the minority. Coaches typically don't have a lot of time to go super deep with a lot of the kids unless they're at one of these boarding schools, because they live there full time. They're limited in a lot of ways of what they can do and the amount of time they can spend. Typically, kids are going to go to practice for 2 hours and then leave, and then if something goes wrong, they're going to complain to their parents or a private coach. And so I would say parents to try to find an environment that instills a lot of this teaching and coaching into their day-to-day practice and day-to-day training every single day. It's no wonder why most of the most successful athletic sports programs just so happens to be coaches who care a lot, who don't try to push just winning, but push being the best you that you possibly can be. Those are the dynasties. Those are the legacies. Those are the win streaks. Those are the coaches that are in it for much, much more than just come in, we're going to win games, we're going to win championships.
Just a brief interruption to the program. If you are enjoying what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating on your listening platform. This will help us grow the podcast. Thanks, and back to the programming.
And success hides problems, it does. So just because a team is successful, or just because your son or daughter is successful on the outside, it doesn't necessarily mean holistically they're a success. So that's where the conversations have to happen. That's when parents got to sit down around the table and say, hey, what's going on and why? I had to sit down with a mom and her daughter maybe 6 weeks ago now, and the daughter is 13 years old, and she was having a lot of hesitation on the basketball court. Her parents are super supportive, awesome, but the daughter for some reason was just like really, really struggling with basketball. She was playing for a travel AAU team all year round and then playing for her school team. And she wanted to, all good, no pressure was being put on her. And that was one of the gripes that the mother had, was like, you don't have to do this. I was talking to the daughter, finally got her to open up a little bit, and she was just saying how she doesn't know what she's going to do if she doesn't play basketball. She's 13. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what you're going to do if you don't play basketball? You're 13 years old. And she starts crying. Okay, let's get mom in. So I get mom in. I'm like, so she says this, and she's playing for this team. She's telling me that her travel team, everybody's in it for themselves. And then she's telling me for her school team, they don't care to play. No one tries hard. So when she's on both teams, she doesn't feel like she fits. She wants a team who has good camaraderie, but she's not getting that on this team. And then she wants a team who tries, and she's not getting it on this team. And I was like, no wonder why she's hesitating on the court. And then because she's experienced all this pressure, in her mind, she's like, you know what? I'm never going to find it, so why play at all? And then the mom's like, why didn't you tell me any of this? And then all of a sudden, the mom and the daughter start talking, and I'm like, this is something you guys need to be talking about every single week. Every week. Get around the dinner table and say, hey, open forum, what's up? And we're not leaving this dinner table until we talk. When I train my kids in here, I make them talk, or we don't train. Because no one's ever put them in an uncomfortable situation to make them. Kids are kids. If they can skirt by, they're going to skirt by. So I don't let them. But they know it's coming from love. And then when they start to open up and talk is when I start getting the Instagram DM saying, thanks, coach, I needed that. You're welcome. But I also communicate to them, look, I'm going to push you and I'm going to put you in uncomfortable situations. I'm going to make you talk. But it's for your own good, and you'll see why. I promise you. And I will be the one that leads you by example. And so when you do that, parents getting around the dinner table and saying, look, what's up? What's going on? I want to hear it. What's up with this team? Should I pull you? What should we do? And getting that kid to open up day in, day out, but it needs to be consistent. Kids need an outlet to talk and be pushed and be prodded and be led by example. That's the biggest change that any parent can affect right now for their children, because who else do they have to look up to? Who else do they really have to emulate? So I would say, also getting these kids to talk, to open up. It's something I did with my younger brother. Every single year, every week, every month, I'm like, dude, do you want to play football? Yes. From the age he was 7 years old, mind you. Every day before we trained. Buddy, do you want to play football? Yes. You don't want to play just because of me, right? No. Every day up until he was 18 years old. You still want to play ball? Yup. You going to go after it this season? Yup. All right, dog. That's all I need to know. And he's at UVA on a full ride. And he's happy and he's content. And he also puts no pressure on himself. He's the most humble kid. He's a dog when he gets on the field. But he's the most kind of non-caring, just like, dude, if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. It sometimes aggravates me because I'm like, come on, have that dog a little more. But he has way more peace of mind than I ever did. And it just so happens he performs at a higher level. Win, lose, or draw, he's Gucci. He's cool. And I still ask him all the time, you good? Yup. College good? Yup. You sure? Yup. Okay, cool. Sounds good, dude. A longer-winded answer, but hopefully enough depth to kind of chew on.
So much depth. This is all extremely fascinating. And I love how you're touching on all these different topics and ways that we need to be present for our children. We lead by example. And that's so important. Like you said, what these kids are seeing, we need to set a good example. Also, way back when you were first talking about starting small, making it possible that you can achieve these. Okay, do 10 push-ups. All right, you're done. And then you build on that and you build those habits and you build that conviction or belief in themselves that they can do this.
Yeah. You made me think of something too, of also parents, because this is something my parents never did, and something that my wife and I are super conscious of, even though we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, but even instilling in them right now, as a 3-year-old and 1-year-old, is parents also coming and saying, hey, I messed up. I'm sorry. Listen, work's tough right now. I'm stressed out, buddy. This isn't your fault. Dad's going through it. I'll figure it out, though. A lot of parents don't want to show that side of them. They don't want to be vulnerable with their kids because I know in my household, my dad, it was weakness. It was, nope, I got it. Pride and ego. And so for a lot of parents, is stripping away some of that pride and ego to say, look, I don't have it all together. I apologize. I'm sorry I lashed out on you. Work was tough this week. I'm going through it right now, but I'll figure it out. Kids want these conversations. They can and will understand them. Kids are smarter than a lot of adults think. Sometimes they come out with stuff that you're like, how'd you even, what? If you expose these kids to much more than wake up, go to school, go to practice, come home, do your homework, do your extra training, go to bed. If you expose them to more, you'd be absolutely just mind blown at what some of these kids can do. I've helped multiple high school kids start their own business and make real money. I have a college kid. He's a freshman right now. I'm going to help him start an online quarterback training academy. And one of the best ways to learn is to teach it. So with some of these older athletes, I'm like, dude, why don't you get on social media, start throwing up sports clips of you training. You'll get clients. I was 17 years old and parents were paying me money to train their 8-year-old. And more parents every year kept sending more. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I'm 19 years old. I have an LLC. I have my own insurance. Guess what that did for my resume? when I graduated college. The opportunities that some of these kids will get is also a lot of parents breaking out of the traditional path that it's been for the last 100 years and saying, look, we live in a different time. Not exposing these kids to some of these opportunities is like not allowing them to use a computer back when they were first put out, when everybody was starting to use a computer and everybody was like, no, we're going to do it by hand. And it's like, well, then you're going to get left in the dust. The point I'm getting at is just parents doing two things, opening up and being vulnerable with their kids sometimes to a point, be real because they'll respect you more. There'll be a deeper relationship and then they will take more pressure off themselves. And then number two, you got to expose your kids to other things out there now when they're 15, 16, 17 years old, because if not, they're behind. And that extra pressure that they're feeling is because they know they're behind. That extra inadequacy that they feel is because they know that they're behind. I talk to the kids. They tell me this is what they say to me. And I'm like, well, the best time would have been yesterday, but the second best time is today. Let's go. Let's start. I'll help you. I get reached out to by so many kids that are like, Coach, this is great. Can you teach me this? Can I have help with this? And I'm like, of course. So even coaches out there listening to this, coaches, raise the bar for yourself too. Educate yourself, not just on the practical coaching and science, but on all that there is to offer, because you might be able to spend more time with these kids, coaching them and talking to them than maybe their own team coaches. So raising the bar for coaches as well to say, learn what this world has to offer, because they're coming into you to train physically. Yeah, but they're also coming to you and they're going to have lots of other questions. A little long-winded, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on those 2 points.
No, that's really good. I mean, you've given practical strategies for parents to take a step back and say, what is it that I need to do to prioritize my athlete? First and foremost, have what could be difficult conversations, open dialogue, set a good example, do the things that if you're expecting your child to be active, then get outside, ride your bike, do things, set an example for them that they see that you're prioritizing your own mental health, your own physical health. And I think too, I love how you said, Derek, to start small. I think a lot of times as parents, we tend to, your kid maybe shows promise in a certain sport, and then the next thing you know, you're signed up for all the tournaments and all the things, and it likely is overwhelming for the child, but they don't know how to articulate, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And then next thing you know, you're fully in, and you're training with all of these people, and you're looking at success numbers, like you're saying, and maybe not taking a look at the environment that's best for your kiddo. So I love how you drew lines and connecting a bunch of different things and how all of it can be full circle and come together for the best of the kid.
And I think on that point is it all comes down to the kid. I read a statistic literally this morning that said the average sports family is about $1,000 a year on clubs and programs and bare minimum. And I think that's way undervaluing the real amount. The more competitive families, it was probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year on athletics 10 years ago. Nowadays, he probably would have been way more. For my younger brother, you're talking 10, 15 grand a year on travel, planes, hotels, whatever, right? But the point that I'm making is if you can invest that, great. But what a lot of parents do is when their kid shows promise, they want to give them what they didn't have. They kind of go overboard. And there's nothing wrong with that if the kid isn't unequivocally all in on it. Because for me, I'm all in. Sign me up for everything I want to do the most. And I'm going to respond very well. And I needed that. But for my younger brother, that wasn't the best option for him. And I had to have a conversation with my dad about it. I go, look, what you did with me and Treadell, my older brother's name, he's not the same. So you got to dial back a little bit. And he responded much better for it. So I think that for parents, don't really start really turning up the heat until like sophomore to senior year. This 10-year-old, and I'm biased on this, and I'm very biased because I've lived it. So unless a parent has lived this, I'm going to speak to it. These 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds going to Disney and going to California and going to this camp and going to that camp at 9 years old, you're doing way more harm than good in the long term. Short term might be fun, but I'm telling you right now, you're doing way more harm than good, because what these kids need is they need to be kids. They need to explore and play. They don't need the pressure or the limelight, because what's going to happen when they're 16, 17, 18 years old is all that pressure is going to come down them like a brink truck, and they're not going to want to perform, and they're going to burn out. Because I have parents talking to me about that now, about their 14, 15-year-old. And when I do a quick little history check, they were the ones going to the Disney camps and doing this and that and doing all these travel leagues all year round. Yeah, he's burnt. She's burnt. She's spent. They're done. Give them a year to like chill, because they missed out on being a kid and they don't enjoy it anymore. If they're 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and it's hard for me to say because I have a dog in the fight, throw them in a gym and let them work out. Throw them on a field and let them play. Throw them into their school club team and let them just be kids. Throw them on a playground and let them explore. Not only will they enjoy it more, they won't burn out. They'll actually develop at a higher level, and they'll run circles around all their friends or peers when they're 16, 17, 18 years old that are burnt out. It's proven. So I just have to make sure that I get that in, that these kids, just let them be kids. When they're 16, 17, 18 years old, and if they're all in and they're like, let's run it up, let's go, then cool, great. Have them everywhere and all the time. But the minute they're like hesitant, like I'm not all in, then you got to dial back a little bit because they need some time. And maybe they discover this isn't the life I want to live, because this will be the life that they live when they get to college. And last point, it's crucial that when they are a junior, senior in high school, prepare them for college. Make them wake up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Make them work out before 7 a.m. Make them do it all for a couple of years. And have them really, truly decide if this is the life they want to live. Because if not, they're going to get to college and then they're going to quit their sport. And then they're going to call you, mom or dad, saying, I don't think I want to play anymore. This is too much for me. And you're going to now have a young athlete stuck at a university they don't want to be at, struggling, want to quit their sport. And that's not what you want. And that's not what you want to spend your money for. They might be better off doing something else, going somewhere else. So save them the stress and pressure of going to a college they graduate from and then have no idea what they still want to do, and it wasn't a great experience, by preparing them in high school. Junior, senior year, you want to be an athlete? Yeah. You sure? Yeah. You want to play college sports? Yeah. Okay. You're up at 5 a.m. And you're going to do a workout before, because I just want to make sure that this is the life you want to live. And then all your homework is done. And then, yes, we're doing extra work. And then, you know what? Hang out with your friends on a Wednesday night. Go. Want to go over your friend's house? Go over your friend's house on Wednesday night. Just be back home by 10 and then do it all over again tomorrow. Whoa, what? This is weird. That's what they're going to be doing in college. Get them prepared. See if this is the life they want to live. See if it's what they want to do. And then if they're in, they get to college and they're like, I've already been doing this life. And this is, Tara, why the boarding schools are becoming such a big hit, is because when you go to a boarding school, high school, prep school, that's what we do. We live there on campus. So when I was a post-grad, you had freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school. That's what we were doing. We had, dorm parents and stuff like that, but like, we're not home. So it prepares them a lot for that collegiate sector.
Super interesting how you're talking about that. And I love that because I've seen multiple people in various sports get burned out when they're in high school. They didn't have enough time being a kid probably and not having all that stress and pressure. But then when they're getting closer to college, preparing them, is this truly the life that you want to live? You're going to have to get up early. And you're going to be able to make choices and hang out with your friends late at night, or you're going to have to study. Like, you're going to have to figure out what's important to you and how much time you can allocate to things.
Yeah.
All these topics you're touching on, they're so poignant. And I love how you expanded on owning your mistakes, setting that example, showing that you're human to your kids, like this is okay, and keeping up that communication, and how you checked in with your little brother every day. Is this what you want to do? Making sure that he had his purpose and he was doing it for himself.
I FaceTime him just about every week. What up, man? You good? Yep. All right.
Well, I can see how so many people that you have trained and coached are inspired to follow in your footsteps and be helping others.
And how relatable I'm sure you are, because like you've said multiple times today that you've walked the walk. You're not just someone that's coming in that's telling these athletes what to do. You've done it. You know what it takes, whether it was your own experience, your two brothers, the relatability there and the athletes wanting to listen to you. I'm sure it just resonates so much with them, I imagine, because you have done it. I admire that. I admire you.
I appreciate that. And I have a couple of buddies who are great coaches. They do a phenomenal job, but it's all the same. We're very transparent. We wear our heart on a sleeve. We talk to the kids, and then we walk the walk. I did a marathon 3 weeks ago now that just now can finally walk from. I didn't train all year for it. I was like, I hate running, but I'm going to do a marathon. I've never been a runner. That was my brother. I'm like, I don't run. The longest I've run in my life is like 4 miles ever. But I did it straight for the fact that I wanted to be able to have that experience and then come back to my athletes and say, see, you see what I mean by your body can do more than your mind will allow? This is what I did. And I'm not doing it to prove anything to you guys. I'm just doing it so that way when I actually say something, it hits a little harder. Because then you're going to be like, okay, he's speaking from experience. It always hits harder when you can speak from the experience. I try my best to give that message to most parents because I'm like, look, I know parents, we try our best. And a lot of what we do or lack thereof comes from what we learned or didn't learn from our parents. I get it. But there has to be a intentionality, not just to seek information. Don't be information wealthy, but action poor. Information is great, but you have to execute on that and live it. And they will follow suit. They'll look up to you and say, if mom or dad is so convicted that this thing will work, then why don't they do it? Oh, they are doing it. Wow, so they must really believe that this stuff works. So I always say to parents, when I work with their kids, when you sign your kid up with me, it's a package deal, whether you like it or not, because the only way that this is effective is if you do all the same stuff. I've trained adults too. And I did a talk for a basketball team last Thursday. And I got a message from the coach today saying how one of the parents wants to reach out to me to work with her because what I was saying to the kids. And I'm like, see, I need this. I have coaches. And I make sure I tell my kids that too. I'm like, I got coaches, I got therapists, I got counselors. I've spent thousands. So I'm not a hypocrite in this. But being transparent, just saying that, it just opens up their mind a little more to the idea of, I do need this help and it's okay.
Something that I feel like we're hinging on and I'm curious about is I feel like we've talked more so about the athlete that maybe like some of the parental pressures I feel like we've talked quite a bit about and like what parents can be doing to not put too much pressure on their athlete and how we can do check-ins. I'm curious though, what would be your advice for parents that have athletes who are extremely intrinsically motivated and they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves? And maybe pressure isn't even the right word, but what would be your advice for the parents to get their kid to like ease back a little bit so that they aren't so enthralled in the sport? And like you mentioned, the 13-year-old where she was saying, I don't know what I would do, or I don't know kind of who I am without this sport. So like, what is your advice for those parents that maybe have kids that are just so into it, but they're putting it on themselves, not necessarily from the parent side?
I just got chills that you asked me this because I recently changed my perspective. What I would have said in the past is it's hard because a kid like that, they're just different. They're a unique breed. I'm kind of giving away my answer, but what I would have said in the past is try to tell your kid it's okay. Like try to just have them have more fun. Like maybe don't put them in as competitive as a league so they're not trying to keep up with everybody, or, you know, have them just kind of like see it as something that they're enjoying. Like all the stuff that you normally would hear. Just have more fun, right? Maybe even, you know, take your son or daughter to go do more fun things and just kind of take the edge off. But I think what happens is parents and coaches try to do that, and it actually does the reverse effect. It actually is counterproductive to have a kid, a young adult, young man, young woman, who is very competitive, who's like, Mamba mentality, this is what I'm going to do. What I've found is it actually does more harm than good. Because what happens is you have this athlete putting so much pressure on themselves to perform, and they know they're different, and they know they're built different, and they know they want to get it, and they know they're all about it. And then you have other people almost telling them, don't be like that. And no one wants to feel that way. No one wants to feel, well, I want it so bad, and I have all these other people trying to tell me, like, chill out, calm down, don't put so much pressure on yourself. And that's even more aggravating. And I know that because that was me. And so I used to not accept it up until even recently, like in the last couple of years. I used to almost put it off, like, stop being like that, be more stoic. I've had counselors and therapists tell me, why are you so high strung? And like, why are you so performance driven? Don't be like that. And I'm like, I don't have an explanation. That's just how I'm wired. It's just what I do. And then the more that people would say not to be like that, the more aggravated I would get because they don't understand because they're not like that. So when parents would try to do that with other high-performing athletes, it pushed them away more than it brought them in, and the problems don't go away. So what I would say now is accept it. Tell them, young man, young woman, let's go. If that's how you're going to be, then that's great. I'm going to love you through it. I'm going to support you through it. There's going to be some high highs and there's going to be some low lows, but let's just try to make those highs higher and those lows higher, and let's try to be a little more consistent. Let's try to go have a little more fun together as a family. But I'm not going to try to not let you be that person, because if that's how you were created to be, then it's probably for a reason or for a purpose. And so that's how I'm hardwired. But it's also the thing that enables me to go do motivational speaking. It's also the thing that enables me to do podcasts like this. It's also what enables me to do the content like I do. It's also what enables me to coach and train and do so much for other people and not burn out. It's what enables me to do the things in the speed at which I do them. Are there some drawbacks that come from it? Yeah. And do I need to be more conscious of like going and taking a walk sometimes? Do I need to be more conscious of getting out in scenery sometimes to fight off the depression? Do I need to be more conscious of making sure I work out and drink water and get sunlight and read and, listen to some music, and have all those kind of practices to calm myself down? For sure. But for anyone to tell me or any other high-strung, high performer, it's not all that serious, or don't just have fun, I'm going to want to run through you. I was a football player. Like, that's all I want to do. Like, don't tell me that. You're going to push me away more.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is almost, for parents, don't dim their light. If they have something that is just in them, the high drive, just incredibly driven toward something, bordering on an obsession.
Yes, absolutely.
Let them be that. Don't
100%.
try to dim that. Don't try to hinder that. Because ultimately, are you saying, Derek, they could internalize that to mean something's wrong with them?
1,000%, and it makes it so much worse. And then what they'll do is they'll start acting out of character. You said a word there, obsessive, and I'm so glad you said that word. Because any person in the world that's ever made any type of huge, lasting, generational, multi-generational impact has been obsessed. Yes, there's drawbacks the same way as there's drawbacks for anybody to be completely lazy or anybody in between. There's always going to be drawbacks. So what we have to do is take some of these people and not put them into a bucket and say, don't be so obsessed. Because by the way, not everybody's like that. It's kind of the 1 out of every 10. But when there's those few, it's putting them and saying, awesome, that's one of your strengths. Well, then I'm not going to dim your light. I'm going to help you not burn the light out. I want you to shine bright, but let's go take a walk. And I literally mean that. After a game, they're super like, they're all upset. Don't tell them, well, it's just a game. We'll just have fun and trust the process. Don't tell me that. Just be like, yeah, let's go take a walk. Maybe you don't even have to talk. Give them coping mechanisms for their high pressure. Don't try to take the pressure off. Just teach them and give them some tactical tools to manage it. Understand it's never going to go away. You might kill their purpose. And they'll be 40 years old, 50 years old saying, man, I've never lost that drive. What if I can't now. I'm too tired or I have kids or whatever. We all hear these stories. What are those coping mechanisms? Go for a walk. After a game, go for a walk. On a Sunday, go for a walk. Go on a nature hike. Drink water. Put some classical music up in the background. In the car ride home. Dad, why are we listening to this? Shh. It's weird too. I get it, but we're going to start listening to this. Do that consistently, and what will happen is you'll just feel the edge kind of come off, and you'll feel the whole family tension just kind of come down a little bit. And then they'll be able to channel the energy into what they need to do, and they'll learn how to focus it, and they'll learn how to deal with it. Just saying that it's just going to go away, it's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. So don't label them as, that's wrong, because it's not. Nor does anybody have to be like that either.
That's so beautiful. I love how you're touching on it. Great question, Destiny. All the change and great things that have happened in this world have come from people that have been super intense. To not stifle somebody's innate abilities that people are born with and to help them thrive, help them cope with it.
Yeah. And it's going to manifest into their marriage one day. It's going to manifest into their work one day. So this is why I keep touching on those coping mechanisms to take the edge off sometimes, to make sure that they know that like they have some solutions to when they start feeling it and it's not channeled right. It's a little out of alignment. A big thing for me for a long time with my wife was when I get home from work, not stepping in the house and still being coach. So what I've learned is take 5 minutes in the car, go for a walk throughout the day, like things like that. So I'm not coming home with all that energy or even just all that excitement. I'm like, oh, I have all these ideas, whatever. And she's like, hold on, I've been with the kids all day. Like I'm not ready. But then all of a sudden now I feel upset. It's all of those mechanisms of just channeling and like the timing of it and giving a 15, 16, 17-year-old this ability. That's a superpower. Are you kidding me? If they're like that and you give them those abilities, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. They're going to do so well in their sport and in life.
Derek, you're talking about these coping mechanisms. And while we're on that topic, I'd love to hear your take on what you would say to a child after a tough game or a practice or when things aren't going their way. What are some of these coping mechanisms for those situations?
My golden answer, it depends. Who's the kid? Again, those 5 themes, what are they struggling with? Is it motivation? Is it inadequacy? Is it criticism? Is it purpose? What is it that kid is struggling with? That's going to determine what I say. And parents know their kids the best. And that's why it's so important for the parents and the kids to be super communicative, to, by the way, also continue to get to know each other, because kids evolve and grow and their interests change, and so do adults. You always have to keep getting to know each other. It'd be a number of things. A kid was struggling with motivation and they had a tough game and they came and they're like, you know what? I want to quit. Then I had to go back to one of the earliest tasks that we had was consistent daily action. And another one of the early activities that I have them do is building a purpose or building a vision. So I probably would go back to him and be like, listen, bud, what's the vision here? What's the purpose here? Let's reframe your mind real quick. So that way you're not just going on this negative cycle of being unmotivated and then being inconsistent and then being undisciplined. And then you want to quit everything. What's your vision in life? What's our purpose again? Let's revisit that real quick. And then I would just bring them back into a frame of mind. If a kid is struggling with perfectionism and they have a tough game and they're like, well, I missed this shot and then my team and my teammates and da-da-da, then I would say to that person, well, in order for you to get to the level you want to get to, is this not necessary? Or do you think everybody's just going to be perfect every game? And I kind of like bring some humor and again, it just brings them down to earth. Yeah, you're right, coach. So listen, the only way to build the highest pyramid, the tallest building, to have the highest potential is to do what? Build the what? The foundation. Okay, and what's the foundation? It's the thing that you build on top. Let's go deeper. Where's the foundation built? Under the ground. Oh, where does a root system go? We would have a tall tree. Where do the roots go? In the ground. So you have to have some darkness. You have to bust through some adversity. You got to do some work, right? So you want to get to the tallest peak? Well, this is just us building the root system. Wow, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, let's go. So it depends on what they're struggling with, who this kid is, and what I'm going to hit on. Feeling inadequate. Oh, I had a tough game. My coach took me out the third quarter. The team lost. I just feel like I'm not good enough. So you're just a lacrosse player? So everything's dependent on lacrosse. Well, no. Well, didn't you just tell me you got this great test last week? Yeah. Well, didn't you just tell me how excited you were for this? Well, yeah. So I'm just asking, why do you feel like all of a sudden, because you had this bad game, that all of a sudden that you're not worth anything else? I don't know. Well, I know. Why? Because you're trying to just put yourself in the box. You want that? No. So you see how I'm kind of altering what I would say? And by the way, it would be the same conversation every single time because they need to hear it every single time. So it's not like you have to have parents this perfect answer or this perfect sequence of events. I actually have a guide, and I can send it to you guys. It's called Game Changing Conversations. And what I built was this whole kind of like script for parents to have these conversations with their kids. And I have like prompts and I have scripts. If your kid says this, you can say this, and options, whatever. And I have this resource because most parents just don't know what to say. And so they get in the car and it's either silent or they're just trying to like share something they saw on social media, which probably isn't the right thing to say at that given point in time. So I literally built a resource called Game Changing Conversations, and it's a practical guide for parents. If any of your listeners reach out or they want to DM me on Instagram or anything, I send it to them. It's like 20-something pages long. A guide for them to like read through and then actually have some talking points and some scripts. So I have another resource. Which of the 5 main paths, I call them growth paths, but which of the 5 main struggles does my child deal with? And it's kind of like an intake for the young adult. And mainly I'm speaking to kids that are like 12, 13 and up, because until they get to the age, their brains aren't developed, their mental processes aren't developed to even kind of get some of these complex ideas. So a lot of this is just going to go over their head. Like I have parents with 8-year-olds saying, yeah, send my son or my daughter your stuff. And they're 8. I'm like, too young, dog. Like they have no idea what I'm talking about. Just let them be a kid, please. What I take my athletes through is I take them through an onboarding. And in that onboarding, I have them choose their growth journey. And in that growth journey, I take them through a video and some prompts and some questions, some descriptions of the struggle and how it manifests and what it looks like. And then I have them decide. And sometimes I'm wrong because I'm like, oh, he's going to choose this. This one kid, I thought for sure he was going to choose self-criticism as his main struggle because his dad is very critical in a good way, in a bad way, whatever. His dad is super, on top of it, and that's all great. But I'm like, oh, my dad was like that. He's probably going to, and he picked motivation. Dude, what? Why? And then when he explained it, I was like, okay, I can see that. And the reason why his dad was overly critical was because he was unmotivated and da-da. There's five of the kind of covers all of them. And then based on those, you can kind of adjust accordingly your conversations, motivations, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, and really guide everything for them and how they're seeing life. Because these are root systems. They're not just going to go away. These are in their DNA. So it's always going to manifest in literally their entire life.
Derek, those resources would be so fabulous to have. I love how you have created these simple game-changing conversations to help direct parents. And I also so appreciate your answer in what to say to a kid after a bad game, a bad practice. Each kid is different. Everybody is different. And tailoring your response to the individual and what you know about them is so helpful.
Yeah, and it's so hard. Like, and this is where like more books might help more than anything. Communication is key in everything. Nothing happens without communication. So one of the biggest roadblocks for parents and their kids is communication. But it's not even just what you say, it's how you say it. It's tone of voice, it's energy, it's bringing it up, it's bringing it down. I don't want parents to get too overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this. It's a skill that needs to be built and practiced over time. The more you do it and the more intentional you are about it, the better you get. But you have to start. And you might say something and screw it up, and that sets your kid off, especially the teenage girls. Just own it and say, all right, my bad. That didn't come out the right way. Like, practice it. It's practice. It's timing, too. I was talking to a basketball mom a couple years ago. I worked with her daughter for about a year, and her daughter would put a ton of pressure on herself. She was a perfectionist. But the mom, he'd like message me paragraphs like, I'm so aggravated. She keeps talking down to herself. I'm like, Mom, chill. Because the mom is like that. Mom's high-strung, entrepreneur, super successful. I'm like, Mom, chill. You can vent to me. But when you go to your daughter, calm down a little bit. You know what might be best right now? Say nothing. Just get in the car and just say, good job. Yeah, cool. And then just go. For your daughter. Now, maybe not for everybody, but for her. And then watch what will happen. She might start opening up to you. And then just ask questions. Don't give answers. Just ask questions. Because maybe she doesn't want answers right now. Maybe she'll come to the answer herself. We learn about this just in basic laws of communication. Or even asking your daughter or son, do you want advice? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to ask you some questions? What do you want right now? And I think that parents forget sometimes just to even give their kids that level of respect. What do you want from me right now? Do you want me to listen? Because I'll listen. Do you want to just vent? Do you need to scream? Do you need to go shoot some extra shots? Do we need to go hit the gym? Do we need to go to Chick-fil-A? What do you need from me right now? And then they'll give you an answer. If they say, I don't know, then just say, okay, well, we're going to sit here until you give me an answer. And we'll just sit here in awkward silence. Eventually, they'll come to it. But don't move. Stand your ground, because the kid needs to learn that comfortability with communication, because when they get to college, they need to communicate. When they get a job, they need to communicate. Not just stuff it all in. Yeah, I would say it's about what you say and also what you don't say and how you say it.
Sure. Destiny, Derek has...
Listen, we had a full list of questions.
We ditched it.
It's ditched. It's gone. Like,
I'm sorry,
we
I kind of
just
do
have
that
had
sometimes.
a great conversation.
Totally. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or advice that you want to share with us that we didn't perhaps touch on? Perhaps a key takeaway or something that you want to encourage sports parents to keep in mind supporting their young athletes?
I would say the key thing that I've discovered over, we're talking tens of thousands of hours at this point working with these kids, is their mindset and emotional development needs to be a daily practice. Point blank, end of story. I have kids that will train with me 5 days a week in the gym, and we'll sprint and we'll lift and we'll jump and we'll get after it, and they'll get stronger and build muscle. And this, if you're just listening, I'm pointing to my brain, or this, I'm pointing to my heart, isn't right. They can be the biggest, fastest, strongest, and they won't reach their potential. They won't even have an inkling of what they truly are capable of. So we have to make mindset training more of a mainstream daily practice. Well, how do I do that? Well, shameless plug, I have just launched a workbook that is exactly that. In this workbook, I'm calling it a mindset training program. It's not a journal. It's not just like this book that they read. What I've heard from kids, because I asked them, what do you guys need? They always tell me, I want an action plan. What do I do? And they get so frustrated. They're like, what do I do? So then I asked them, if I create something for you to do every day and I spend the time creating it, you'll do it? They're like, yes. Okay, because I'm going to do it. So I just finished it. It's called The Empowered Athlete. It's 20 minutes a day, because any more, they're not going to do it. Any less, it's not going to hit what it needs to hit. So 20 minutes a day, it's a daily mindset training practice. We touch all the 5 main themes I talked about. They're all inside of it. Visualization, it's in there. Gratitudes, it's in there. Meditation, it's in there. I also, because I'm faith-based, there's scripture, so they can ground it on scripture. There's short little teaching, so they actually can understand it. Then there's goal writing, because every research study that you will look up on goal writing will show that you're more likely to achieve a goal if it's written down and you see it every day. And then there's daily commitments to self. There's literally, I commit to whatever the teaching was that day, and then they sign it. And then every week, there's a weekly reflection. How are they feeling on their confidence, on their relationships, on their spiritual growth, X, Y, and Z. And then there's a monthly reflection. I'm actually trying to get these kids to think about, where do you want to go in the next 1 to 3 years? What's your vision? Giving them the space to even be asked that question. So I've created that program. For right now, it's written. In the future, we want to make it this digital software deal, because it's the next generation. It's called The Empowered Athlete. It's 20 minutes a day. Every single day, we touch on perfectionism. We touch on failure. We touch on mindset, growth. We touch on adversity, every different type of topic. And then it's also progressive. So the way I've made it is every 2 months builds on itself. So each workbook is 60 days. And each month builds on itself and revisits stuff in the past in a new light. They do this every single day for a year and keep revisiting, keep training. It's like going to the gym consistently for a year. What can you expect when you go to the gym? 3-4 days a week for an entire year straight. It's game over for them. But what if they only go 2 days a week for 2 months, and then stop, and then for 2 months, and then stop, and then a month, and then New Year's, back in the gym for 3 months? I've seen it in adults I work with. It's not going to last. If you want lasting change, parents, make this a daily activity. I don't care how you do it, whether it's my resource or another resource or what you do in the house. Please train it every day, because this generation, they need it the most. They've been hammered with social media, the pandemic, and everything else in between. They need this help more now than ever. Please make it a daily practice. Mic drop. Boom.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Derek, I'm so excited that we've had this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. This was good.
How can people keep up with you? Where would you like us to guide them?
Yeah, Instagram. That's my main hub right there. So Instagram at Coach Derek, D-E-R-E-K, Ward, W-A-R-D. So just at Coach Derek Ward. You'll find all my stuff. And I make posts and I put practical help up there on the page and on my stories and teachings and education and clips and stuff. Find me on Instagram at Coach Derek Ward. DM me, message me. I'm an open book, so I always try to help as much as possible. I have plans on doing like lives more. And then I have a free community. So if you hit me up on Instagram, I can plug you into there and we keep growing.
That's excellent.
What I do, and I want to make a point of this, is whether they succeed in sports or not, I don't really care. I care if you can take some pressure off yourself, realize that you're not going to be perfect for your whole life, and just enjoy your experience a little more. That's a win to me. That's all I care about. And so I care about helping these young adults be the best people they can be, students of life that they can be, and then athletes come third. That's my mission.
Amazing. Derek, it's been so awesome. Thank you for sharing everything you've shared. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. This was fun. I appreciate this, guys.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're so glad you've joined us today. Thank you for listening. Upcoming episodes and show info can all be found at sportsmomrapport.com. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. We'd love to hear from you, so please reach out to us with any comments or if you or someone you know would like to share their story and connect with us. The views and opinions expressed in the Sports Mom Rapport podcast are those of the individual guests and hosts and do not constitute legal or professional advice.
We strive to create an inclusive environment that encourages respectful dialogue and understanding from all listeners.
We are proud to welcome guests from all cultural, religious, and diverse backgrounds.
The content in this podcast is intended for informational and discussion purposes only.